All right, Aaron and Drew, thank you for coming on to the Basketball Performance Podcast. I think this is going to be a fun episode. And I have to be honest, this is the first episode that I'm interviewing two guys at the same time. So I'm going to try and distribute the questions in evenly fashion. But let's start with you, Aaron. Can you give us a little bit of background on you guys? And I want you to tell us your background all the way up to high school. And then Drew, you take it from there.
So starting at a young age, obviously, Drew and I, we have an older brother named Billy Elam. He played basketball at Syracuse. So he actually was teammates with Carmelo Anthony. They were roommates together in 2003. They won a title together. My brother was the point guard on that team. Him, Jerry McNamara, Hakeem Ward, Melo, all them guys. So we grew up watching all those guys on TV. Yeah. And we were like, man, like one day we want to play basketball just like him. Like we want to be on TV just like our big brother. So grew up was like, man, one day we want to, earn a scholarship to play basketball. But at a young age, we kind of didn't really know how to go about doing this. So we would obviously play basketball at recess. We were on a few rec league teams in third grade and stuff. So we played rec league basketball basically every winter from third, fourth, fifth grade and stuff. And then we turned 11. We ran into this guy named Coach Tony Langley, who was an AAU coach down here. Runs a program called the DC Warriors, and we started playing for him. He really almost changed our lives. He became a father figure to us because we grew up in a single parent household. My brother Andrew and our younger brother Adam grew up with our mother in right outside Washington D.C. in Tacoma Park, Maryland. So single parent household. My mom was on disability; she couldn't even work, so we didn't really have much money growing up. Times were extremely tough, financially growing up. So our AAU coach Tony Langley kind of served as a father figure and a basketball coach for us. He made sure we had food, made sure we had socks and stuff. So we were coming to practice with holes in our socks and whatnot, and he kind of make sure that we had everything we needed from that point of view. And played with him from the time we were 11 all the way through high school. Both of us played. We went to Tacoma Park Middle School. Played for him. He was our middle school coach too. So we were talking a little bit off camera, but we would go to middle school, then have middle school practice, and he would take us to the rec to have AAU practice after middle school practice. And so we'd be gone from 6 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. at night, and then we'd come home to our mom and sleep and wake up and do it again the next day. And kind of did that all throughout middle school. Went to Springbrook High School in Montgomery County, which was a powerhouse for basketball in our area. Springbrook, they had won 3 straight state championships in the 4A for our 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade year. So we came in as freshmen, as 9th graders, and played JV as freshmen, but then got moved up to varsity at the end of our freshman season. So had the opportunity to play with one of the best teams in the area that year. Fortunately, came up short our freshman year, lost in the regional championship, didn't make it to states. So kind of fast forward through our high school career, honestly, Drew played varsity as a sophomore. I ended up playing JV as a sophomore again, and then playing varsity. I got moved up to varsity at the end of my sophomore year, and then both of us were on varsity as juniors and seniors, honestly. And senior year was a huge year for us. Drew had a huge year that year. Coming into that summer between junior and senior year on the AAU circuit, Drew had a great summer and got a whole bunch of offers from a bunch of Division I schools, and we kind of started getting a lot of attention from colleges and whatnot. But I didn't have any offers, but coming into that senior year, we knew we want to go to school together. So the plan was always for us to be a package deal in college. We're going to go to school somewhere together. So like I mentioned, we didn't have any Division I offers for one school together. Drew had a bunch of schools that was if you want to come this year, we'll take Aaron next year. Or I remember Drexel was oh yeah, Drew, if you want, we'll take you, and then Aaron, you can go to Holy Family, which is a Division II school right down the road, and we'll get you an apartment together. You guys live together in an apartment off campus, and yada yada yada. We were all right, I think obviously I felt like I was a Division I player, and Drew was now my brother was a Division I player. We're gonna go to school together this year. So we waited it out, and then ended up getting an offer from Niagara, which is a school in the MAC, the end of our senior year, which was June of our senior year. So by this point in time, we had kind of already set our minds on going to prep school. So took the visit to Niagara, but ended up basically opting to go to prep school. I'm gonna kind of take that route for one more year, kind of trying to find a school where both of us to go to, and also Drew had a big summer that year. He made this camp called the Reebok Breakout Top 100 Camp. So basically, it was a camp for top 100 players in the country, and a bunch of great players there: Donovan Mitchell, Terrence Ferguson, and the name goes on and on with dudes that were at the camp. But played really well there. Started getting some high major offers. Some high major interest from some A10 SEC schools and whatnot. she was like, yo, man, like I kind of want to see where this could go. Like, if we may as well go to prep school, see what happens with next year, and then we can, kind of go through the recruiting process again. So we go to Putnam Science Academy up in Connecticut. Had an opportunity to play for a top 10 team in the country there. At Putnam Science Academy, we played with Hamidou Diallo, who is now playing with the Detroit Pistons, won the slam dunk contest. Drew and I started every game there that year. We ended up finishing, I believe, like 7th in the country that year. Had a bunch of other guys that were Division I scholarship guys, like big man Mamadou Diarra ended up playing at UConn. He was a top 100 player. Our pro guard Keelan Ives ended up going to Rider. We had a big man named Vincent Easy. He played at started at Maine, and then went to Fairfield. We had another guard that went to Jacksonville, and then he ended up going Division II. We had another guy that went to Ferry Dickinson and made a tournament there. But we had a team for basically Division I, mid-major, low-major, high-major guys on that team. And then eventually we ended up committing to Quinnipiac. Actually, we committed before the season even started. Like, we committed in August, right when we got up there. Quinnipiac had been recruiting us for a while, so had some familiarity with the staff. And obviously they have a really good journalism program there. We knew a guy that had went to Springbrook High School, where me and Drew are from, that I went to Quinnipiac. He told us great things about it. So just felt like a place where we could go there and maximize our potential on and off the court. Like I said, we're really comfortable with the staff. And so we ended up committing to Quinnipiac and going there for college. So from there, obviously, I'll let Drew take it from there. But that's kind of a little quick version of our upbringing kind of through basketball.
Nice. So Drew, what happens after Quinnipiac?
Yeah, man. So we get to Quinnipiac, and we got recruited by a coach named Tom Moore. He was there for our first 2 years, and kind of freshman year, we kind of went through ups and downs, like as a lot of freshmen do, playing, not playing, being in the rotation, not being in the rotation. Sophomore year comes around, and it's kind of more the same. Like, this is supposed to be like a year where we should be seeing some more minutes, but Ace actually ends up redshirting this year. This sophomore year at Quinnipiac, and it was just a crazy year in general for us that year because our mom ended up passing away like at the beginning of the season in November. So that was literally she passed away I think on the 14th, and like it was literally I think we had played maybe one game or something like that. It was right before we were supposed to go to the Walt Disney World trip. They do a preseason tournament at Disney World. This year it was like Gonzaga was in it, Florida was in it, Seton Hall was in it. We got invited to play in it. This right before that. So like obviously we went home, spent time away from the team. So it was a crazy beginning of the year that year. So then we come back, and obviously we finish up the season, but we had a tough year. Coach Moore ended up getting fired, which was definitely a shock because this is the coach that recruited us. So now it's like, all right, do we enter the transfer portal? Do we try to go somewhere else? But they ended up hiring Coach Baker Dunleavy, and we decided to stay there at Quinnipiac for our last 2 years. And Coach Dunleavy was obviously coming from Villanova, so we thought it was a good fit. Us being kind of guards, they play like a 4-out style, so we thought it would kind of fit well to our games, and we kind of trusted in that. So junior year went well, man. We made a surprise run to the MAC semifinals, man, and I like to say myself, man, that I feel like I ended up tearing the ligament on my ankle my junior year, and I missed the last 11 games of the season, including the MAC tournament. So I feel like, man, if I'd have been healthy, we had a full team, and we might have been able to make the tournament that year. Because that was the year, I think, was that the year we beat Iona, or was that senior year we beat Iona on the road? I don't know what year we had beat Iona, but I think either way we had a great chance of winning the MAC that year. I mean, we made it all the way to the semifinals, and I was in Coach Dunleavy's first year. We didn't even have a lot of depth, that year. So senior year, fast forward, I ended up having a herniated disc in my back. So I ended up having a red shirt that year just because I was going through a lot of just pain. I didn't want to play my last year dealing with a back injury. So I ended up sitting out that year, but Ace ended up having a great year. He kind of followed it up with our junior year. He made a game winner in the MAC tournament at the end of our junior year to upset Canisius in the quarterfinals of the MAC tournament to put us to the semifinals. So he kind of followed up on that momentum our senior year while I was redshirting and kind of was our defensive anchor on the team that year. So following that year, our senior year, we really should have won the MAC. Like we literally had a chance to win a MAC regular season championship on our home court on senior night, last game of the season, and we lost to Manhattan, man, and a chance to have a
And we had
freaking
already beat them at their crib earlier in the year.
And that was our opportunity to put a banner, So I mean, that was always a tough pill to swallow, man, because we could have left out, with the banner. But then, we ended up getting upset in the MAC tournament by Monmouth. So that was kind of the ending of that year. And after that, we both ended up having another year of eligibility because we both ended up redshirting at different points in our careers. So we ended up deciding to come home for our last year. Playing back home in Maryland at Coppin State University for Juan Dixon, who is, a legend back in Maryland. He won national title for University of Maryland, the only national title in school history for the men's program. Played in the NBA for, I think, 8 or 9 years, played for the Wizards. So, and now he was the coach at Coppin. So we went ahead and played for him. And I mean, really, we wanted to be closer to home, have an opportunity to play together, and then two, have opportunities to really play together. Because, throughout our time at Quinnipiac, we never really got a chance to really play too much together, because freshman year, Ace wasn't really playing that much. I wasn't really playing too much. Sophomore year, Ace redshirted. Junior year, at the beginning of the year, Aaron wasn't really playing that much, and I was playing a lot. Then at the end of the year, I was hurt and I wasn't playing. He was playing a whole bunch. And in my senior year, I redshirted. So despite the fact that we had we were there for 4 years and we each played 3 years, we didn't really have too much time to actually play on the court together. So at Coppin State, man, that was really the first time that we actually both got to play significant minutes, on together, in our college basketball career, man. That was a special year, man. We beat Loyola Chicago on the road. This was 2 years after they were coming off of the Final Four. They still had Cameron Quetwig, Lucas Williamson, a couple other guys who were on that Final Four team. We went on the road and beat ECU, who was a power conference team in the American Conference. So we won 4 non-conference games at Coppin State, 4 Division I non-conference games, which was the second most in school history for Coppin State for non-conference wins. We should have had the record, man. We had a tough ending of the non-conference schedule, man. But it was good. Ended up leaving a bittersweet taste in our mouth because we never got to finish that year. I think we had a great non-conference and we felt like we could win the MEAC that year. We had a 7-footer named Brendan Medley-Bacon who ended up transferring to VCU, who was the anchor of our defense. We had a lot of talent on that roster, man, and we ended up winning our last 3 games heading into the MEAC tournament, ended up earning the first round bye, but, then COVID comes and kind of wipes out the season, So, that kind of was the end of our college career there, you know what I'm saying? And, left a big question mark on what could have been, but nonetheless, it was a journey that we went through, but, I won't take anything back.
Definitely. So we touched upon a few different things, high school recruiting. We're going to touch upon that later. But a lot of our listeners here are from Asia. And for those who don't know, the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area has a very rich basketball culture. They produce countless NBA players and amazing teams. For you guys, what are some of the changes that you see now in the kids compared to when you guys were playing? It could be the kids, or it could be the culture, it could be the structure. What's one thing each that you guys think is the biggest difference?
I would say the first thing, well, first of all, the talent hasn't changed. There's top 100 All-American kids coming out every year. I mean, now you got Jeremy Roach and Trevor Keels both starting at Duke, and I mean the list goes on and on. And when we were coming up, it was Melo Trimble was an All-American and one of the best players at Maryland, and obviously Markelle Fultz, the #1 pick in the draft. I had the opportunity to play with him in high school, so the talent is still there. The talent is the talent. It's always going to be talent there. I'll say the one thing that's probably changed the most is the shoe circuits were a thing when we were coming up, but it was kind of really first kind of getting jumping. So you had EYBL, you had the Adidas circuit, and you had the Nike circuit. EYBL had been around for a few years, so that was the premier one. Under Armour and Adidas circuit were a little newer, so they were still a thing, but it wasn't as prevalent as it was now. So you had AAU teams, my team wasn't on any circuit. DC Warriors, we weren't on the circuit. There was a team called Mid-Atlantic Select that produces a bunch of Division I kids. A lot of guys from Montgomery County, where me and Drew are from, they weren't on a circuit. There's a team called the Future Players that was a non-circuit AU team that was coming up in the area at the time. There were a bunch of teams that weren't really on a circuit that were prevalent, that were really good. And I think public school basketball was also a lot better when we were in high school. So me and Drew went to public school, and obviously me and Drew were Division I players. We had a junior on our team named Jermaine Ukable who played Division I basketball. We had another kid on our team that was a sophomore. He ended up playing at Division II at Franklin Pierce. He ended up one of our best friends, Isaiah Eisendorf, ended up playing Division II. He's now playing overseas in Europe. But we had like 4 or 5 scholarship players our senior year, like me, Drew, Jermaine all played D1, and then Flu and Isaiah both played D2, 4 scholarship guys, and 3 of those guys ended up being pros. Jermaine's coaching, and I'm now obviously doing stuff in the media, but then obviously PG County, you had a bunch of guys like Deion Wiley was a top 50 recruit, went to Maryland. Roddy Peters, another top 50 recruit, went to Maryland. Randall Brody was like a top 100 recruit. He ended up going to Memphis and got in some, or he was supposed to go to Memphis, and he ended up getting in trouble and whatnot. I think he might have actually gotten there for like a semester or something like that. I think he might have got in trouble or something like that. But public school basketball was a lot better when we were in high school. Now it's like the public school basketball isn't very good. Like you can go to the WCAC is arguably the best high school league in the country with DeMatha, Gonzaga, Paul Six, St. John's. All those teams are usually nationally ranked, but and also you got the teams in Baltimore like St. Francis and Mount St. Joe's, and those are all private schools. But the public school basketball isn't the same as what it was. I think a lot of kids, because of the AAU stuff, have kind of filtered out to private schools. So the public school basketball isn't really what it was. And then I'll say like the circuits are a lot more like, if you're not playing on a circuit team, it's a lot harder to get recruited nowadays than it was when we were in high school. So I'll probably say that's the biggest difference in
Aaron, sorry to interrupt. Do you think it's because that a lot of the talent is being recruited by private schools within the states and out of, meaning like out into other states? Could that be a possibility?
Definitely a possibility, because I know, like, for example, me and Drew left and we went up north to New England to go to prep school. I know there's a lot of kids that have done that, like public school guys. For example, I know there's a kid, a kid named at Maryland named Marcus Dockery. He's from DC, public school kid. He went to Theodore Roosevelt in DC. He left and went to Brewster. So he left the city and went up there to get recruited. And there's another kid, Darius Miles, same thing. He was at Roosevelt too. He left and went to IMG. And he's at Alabama now. And there's been kids that done it, a bunch of kids. Even the kid Dominguez Stevens, he was a DC kid, transferred to Northfield, right, Drew?
No, that's Ricky Lindo. Ricky Lindo was going to go to Northfield.
Ricky Lindo, yeah. He was a DC kid, transferred to Northfield, Mount Herman, which is up north, and then he ended up going to Maryland, and now he's at GW. But a lot of kids do that, and transfer out to like New England schools and whatnot. But I think also the shoe teams, like the shoe companies and whatnot, the circuits, Adidas, AU, Under Armour, they have so much of an influence on guys now that a lot of these guys are coaching at like high schools, or they have relationships with like high school coaches. So like all the takeover guys are like going to like DeMatha, Paul Six, Gonzaga. All the DC Premier guys are going to O'Connell or McNamara or XYZ private schools. So like a lot of the kids that play on the circuits are just getting filtered to private schools. Whereas like there's not too many kids that are playing public school basketball that are really getting an opportunity to get seen. Because if you're not playing on one of those circuit AU teams, then you're probably not going to be able to, the private schools probably aren't going to, want to have you come there. They're not going to pay for you to go there. A lot of kids can't afford to pay for private school. So you end up going to a public school, but you end up getting overlooked if you go to public school. So it's tough, man. It's a tough road. And I think a lot of things are kind of changing with the business of college basketball and like the AAU stuff too. They're just kind of trickling down to high school basketball as well.
For sure. Drew, let me ask you this next question. What do you think, since you guys scout and see so many games, what do you think is the biggest challenges for high school players before they go to college? And even put yourself in the same bucket. What were some of the things that you might not have known going into college? Maybe some of the skills you had to refine. What were some of the challenges there?
I mean, 100%. Like it's the physicality of the college game, the speed of the college game, the demand of the college game, and then like just the mental aspect of the college game as far as like picking up schemes and things like that. Like I don't think a lot of high school kids realize, man, like the amount of detail that goes into playing, especially at the Division I level. Like when you talk about scouting reports and film and just things that you're trying to do on defense, different ways to cover a ball screen. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do on a basketball court. I remember in high school, like, we were playing defense. We was like, all right, why are they going to switch a screen, or we're going to do like a little bogus, like maybe hedge or something like that. Like And when you get to college, it's like you learn that there's like a million different ways to guard a ball screen. And you could like flat hedge, you could show, you could play drop coverage, you could ice, you could switch, you could three-man switch, like you could veer. There's so many different things that you can do. Like, and I think coming into high school, you don't really understand like that you just think, all right, I'm gonna come on the court and I can put the ball between my legs and run and dunk, and that's gonna be it. And it's like, nah, like once you get to the college level, man, like there's film and there's so much preparation that goes into the game. You know what I'm saying? And then there's, like I said, the demand of practice. Like, you're gonna have, a hour and a half, lift before practice. Then you're gonna come in and practice for 2 or 3 hours. And after that, you're gonna have study hall. After that, you got class and things like that. So I mean, there's so many things that you're doing, man. You know what I'm saying? And then nowadays, it's even crazy, man. Because if you're a freshman coming into college now, you're 18, 19 years old. And I mean, now with this COVID year, you legitimately have guys that are like legit 24, 25, like in college that are playing against 18, 19-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? So like, no matter how good you are, it's going to be an adjustment just physically, because you're literally playing against grown men. You know what I'm saying? So, and you got guys that did prep school and red shirts and all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, I think those are some of the biggest things that you have to kind of adjust to when you're coming from high school to college.
Let me ask you this, Drew, because right now Drew is playing in Portugal. Do you see, I'm not sure if you've gotten a chance to see like the youth development there, but I'm curious to see what coaches put emphasis on. So say, for instance, during my experience playing in the States, there was a lot of amazing athleticism and individual skill ability in the States. Whereas if you come to other parts of the world, especially Europe and different places, the coaches are teaching a lot about basketball intelligence, moving without the ball. This is how you set a flare. This is how you set an away screen, a down screen, back screen. This is how you attack a pick and roll. And kids at 15 may already understand all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where our program gears towards. Do you see a difference in terms of what is emphasized overseas as opposed to in the States?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, the whole basketball system overseas is different because, so take from my team, for example, right? Like we have like teams like under 12, under 14, under 16, under 18. So like you have kids that are like developing in the system from the time they're like young and playing, like not professional basketball, but they're playing in a certain system, right? And like in America, like you go to high school, then you go to college, then you become a pro. Like overseas, like on my team, for example, we have 2 guys. We have 1 kid that's 16 years old on our team. We have 2 kids that are like we have one 16-year-old, one 17-year-old. 1 kid actually just turned 19 today, and 1 turned 19 like a couple weeks ago. So like they're on our team though. They practice with us every day. They're kids, but like in Europe, or I'm gonna speak in Portugal specifically, like let's say at 18 when you're done high school, like if you want to keep playing basketball, like you don't go to college, like you just turn professional. Right. So like you can turn pro at 18, 17, 18 and start playing. So like it's a lot different than in the States. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to college and going to class and stuff. Like, all right, if I want to be a basketball player, I'm going to be a pro. As far as like the tactical stuff, as far as like on the court, overseas basketball is a lot different than the States because one, like you mentioned, it's not really predicated on athletic ability. There's a lot less floor spacing over here. Like people sit in the paint, and so people down here are really focused on just like making certain passes, like making certain reads, like seeing the play develop before it happens, things like that. So it's less predicated on like, going one-on-one and how high you can jump, and more so on like thinking the game and being able to understand the mental aspect of it. So like I said, the 16-year-old that we have on our team, he's the point guard. And I mean, he's only thing, he's just small, like, but as far as like, I mean, he can make any pass, like, you know what I'm saying? Like he can make shots. He has great pace to his game. He's going to be really good when he gets older. He's just 16 and playing against grown men. But I think that's the biggest difference. I think a lot of like when you over here, like it's just, they view kind of basketball and just school just a lot differently.
Cool. Well, one of the coolest things about these guys is that they kind of had an idea of what they wanted to do after basketball. And so Aaron hasn't said anything for a while, so I'm going to give Aaron this question. And, just for everybody listening, there may be a little bit of difference in opinion here, but tell us about All Facts Media and how did you guys first get into it?
Yeah, so we always knew that we wanted to get into sports, like media. So obviously me and Drew have always grew up watching sports, like from a young age. We grew up watching ESPN every day. So we were like, yo, like I want to do that one day. I want to be on TV talking about sports. All we do is argue about sports anyway. So you might as well do something and get paid for it one day. So we always knew that also whenever the ball stopped bouncing, whether it was 25, 35, 55, we wanted to do something that was going to keep us around sports, but neither of us kind of really wanted to get into the coaching stuff. So we were like, all right, like, how can we kind of stay around the game, but also do something that's fun, do something we love to do? And so journalism was something that we both were like, all right, like this is something we have a passion for. This is something we think we could be good at one day. So we mentioned going to Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac obviously was a good school for the basketball, but also Quinnipiac has one of the best journalism programs in the country. They have like 2 student-run media organizations. A bunch of media organizations. They have a newspaper, the Chronicle. They have Q30 Sports, or Q30 Television, which is a television station that's run by the students. They have QBSN, which is Quinnipiac Bobcat Sports Network. They do a magazine. They do the play-by-play commentary stuff at the games. They have a WQAQ, which is the radio station, and a great student media organization, great, journalism program with professors that have won Emmy Awards. And, I had a professor that have works to this day at ESPN and whatnot. So great connections, great program. So we went there. And obviously for our 4 years there, we're playing basketball. We're also involved in the student media while we were there. So I had the opportunity to be a beat reporter for the men's lacrosse team when I was there. I was a huge part, especially my junior and senior year. I was anchoring newscasts like almost weekly, and I was, doing filming games, creating highlights for our nightly newscasts and stuff like that. And it was super fun, man. One of the most, probably the most fulfilling thing that we did in college, like as far as preparing ourselves for like after basketball, was definitely the student media piece. So Quinnipiac was awesome for that aspect. When we got to Coppin, honestly, for people that, I know a lot of people listening to this in China, like there's things called HBCUs in America, which are historically Black colleges and universities. And these schools are typically have a lot less funding than your, we call them PWI, which are predominantly white institutions over here. So like your typical school like a Quinnipiac has a whole lot more money, a whole lot more resources than a school like a HBCU, so like a Coppin State. So Coppin State didn't have a lot of resources, didn't have a journalism program, didn't have any type of student media, didn't have anything as far as like a media journalism program when we got there. So we were like, man, how can we we've done all this work for the last 4 years, building our voice, building our audience, people that, had cared about what we were saying about sports. So how can we kind of keep this going? We said, you know what? There's no student media. We're going to just make our own student media. We're going to create it ourselves. So we came up with a platform called All Facts Media. And in the beginning, basically, we were just covering Coppin State athletics. So we were just covering like, volleyball in the fall. We were doing like women's basketball when we didn't have games, obviously, in the winter. We were doing baseball in the spring. And we really just go to games with our cell phone and film highlights and put them on Twitter and put them on Instagram. We would do post-game interviews with the coaches. Same way we do at Quinnipiac, but we didn't have the fancy cameras and microphones and all the production. We weren't editing, anything. It was like we're filming on our phone and put it on social media. And that's really all you need, honestly, to be able to do this media stuff. Like we did that. We're doing that basically for the whole year until COVID happened. And once COVID happened, obviously that shut down all the college sports. So there was no college sports to cover. So that's kind of where we pivoted. And we started covering like college basketball because during that time when the coronavirus hit and it kind of shut the whole sports world down, the only thing that was going on really was the transfer portal. So obviously being D1 athletes, we had a bunch of friends that were in the portal. So we were like, all right, let's kind of start, covering their recruiting. So we had a couple of teammates that were in the portal that allowed us to cover their recruitment. And thankfully, both of those guys were big time recruits. They were both like probably top 10, top 15, top 20 grad transfers in the country that year. So Rich Kelly and Kevin Marfo ended up transferring to Texas A&M, which is obviously an SEC school, and Rich Kelly transferred to Boston College, which is an ACC school. So both of those guys, obviously, their recruitment was pretty big news. And we also had the kid Darius Miles, who's from DC. He was a 4-star recruit. He committed to Alabama. So I covered basically recruiting, and that kind of pivoted us into covering like college basketball. And obviously through our relationships, we had a bunch of coaches that whether we had coached against them or whether they had recruited us. So we started doing interviews with coaches, and being from the DMV, we knew a bunch of players that were from here that were playing at the highest level, like Luka Garza, who National Player of the Year last year at Iowa. He's from the DMV. Me and Drew knew him growing up, so we had him come on the podcast. We had Leonard Hamilton come on from Florida State, who my older brother, Billy Edelin, trains a kid in Syracuse named Quincy Ballard, who committed to Florida State. So made that connection, got Leonard Hamilton on the podcast. And our platform just kind of started to grow from there. We got into covering college basketball. So from there, it's kind of taking life of its own. And now I'm obviously here in Baltimore, pretty much doing that almost full time. I'm also doing some writing for NBC Sports, but we're covering a bunch of teams in the area like Maryland, Georgetown, George Mason, GW, Towson, UMBC, and also we have a weekly podcast called The Auto Bid on Spotify and Apple where we cover mid-major college basketball. So we've had D1 coaches and players and the whole 9 yards on. So that's kind of how it came to life, kind of just through it really came out of a necessity because when we got to Coppin State, there was nothing really going on. So just kind of created it for ourselves, and it's been a blessing to see it kind of grow and blossom, through the years.
Cool. Drew, what do you think is one characteristic that makes up a good journalist? And can you give us an example of someone, say on ESPN or something like that we can look at and kind of identify why he or she is a good reporter or a good journalist? Because from a layman's perspective, it looks very easy when in fact it's totally not. Can you give us one good characteristic and one person that we could watch who is a good sports journalist?
Yeah, so I think the easiest thing I can say as far as the characteristic that makes a good journalist is just being authentic, being authentic and being truthful. And I think this is something that I think a lot of people have to understand too. Like when you watch TV, right? And when you're watching ESPN, when you're watching TNT, when you're watching Undisputed with Shannon Sharpe and all those guys, what people have to realize is that like those people are not journalists. Like Shannon Sharpe is not a journalist. Like Shaq and Chuck on TNT are not journalists. Like all these people that are giving all these hot takes are not journalists. Even Stephen A. Smith, like he started off as a journalist, but now he's more of like a TV personality, like all those the wild yelling and antics. Like he's not really doing like the ground fundamental journalist work. You know what I'm saying? He's obviously still has his connection to his reporting and he does, but it's a little bit different now. So for me, somebody who I really look up to as a journalist that I think does a great job is Michael Wilbon. And Michael Wilbon is a guy who works for ESPN. He's written for a number of years. He's on PTI right now with Tony Kornheiser, but he's covered DC sports and Washington DC sports and all those type of things, man, for years and years and years. And I mean, he's an exceptional journalist, man. He actually just got inducted into the Hall of Fame as a contributor in this last class. And I mean, he does exceptional writing. He does exceptional work on TV. He's very articulate. And one thing I look up to him, obviously, being African-American myself, he's an African-American journalist who's, reached the absolute pinnacle of the profession. And, he's not out here overly, he's not a hot take journalist. He's not just out here saying anything to get views or likes and clicks. So he actually does reporting, you know what I'm saying? And like conducts interviews and like puts out compelling stories. That's journalism in its purest form. And I think a lot of people get caught up today and they get kind of this misconception of journalists nowadays because they think everybody who's on TV is a journalist, and that's not the case at all. Right.
And this is a question to both of you guys because this is an art, I would say. I don't even know how journalists do it. Say, as a journalist, I want to develop a good relationship with the players, right? But at the same time, I have a moral obligation to uphold my job and report the truth, right? That's just basic 101 journalism. How do I go about maintaining that good relationship? But you might have a bad game, and then I can't be like, oh well, he wasn't feeling well that day. He'll come back. How do I maintain that balance of maintaining a good relationship, but at the same time reporting what needs to be reported?
It's funny you asked that, man, because I actually just did a TikTok on this All Facts Media TikTok. So for you guys that are listening, you can go check that out on TikTok at All Facts Media and on Instagram. It's on Reels as well, but. I think the biggest thing, man, is that one, you just have to be truthful. Like, be truthful and never disrespect a player. Like, right now, like I'm a professional athlete myself. And I'm never gonna get mad at somebody in the media for saying, like, if I had a bad game and you say I had a bad game, you say I wasn't shooting the ball well, whatever, like, cool. You know what I'm saying? I think the issue is when people in the media, when they don't have an appreciation for like these athletes, like, a lot of times, like, people don't understand that these athletes are the top 1% and 2% in the world at what they do. And like you see people going on the internet saying, "Oh, so and so sucks," or "He is horrible." And it's like, yo, like half of these guys never picked up a basketball in their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, how are you gonna go in the air and say this person sucks or this person this and that? Like, you don't know. You've never walked in their shoes before. And I think that's what rubs the guy. That's what rubs players the wrong way. And especially people who kind of get in the media, like as players, and then they get in the media afterwards. Like, I mean, I think there's been a lot said in the media now. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but people are always talking about Kendrick Perkins, like this beef with KD and Westbrook, because Kendrick Perkins, and again, he's not a journalist. He's a TV personality. He's not a journalist. Like, he's on ESPN to kind of get his takes off, but he'll say wild things about NBA players. And then they're like, yo, Perk, like, you were in the locker room with us. Like, you were literally just my teammate. You know what it's like to be in the trenches and, to go through a slump or whatever. And then you get on the air and say all these crazy things. Like, you don't know what it's like to be in our shoes. So, for somebody who's trying to be a journalist and wants to kind of maintain a relationship, man, I would just say, like, tell the truth and just be honest. Like, don't get off any takes for a viral moment or, clickbait. Like, just be authentic. Tell what's going on. At the end of the day, like, that player will have to respect you at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as you're not talking about they family or nothing like that, like, it's basketball at the end of the day. So, that's what I would do.
Aaron, how do you go about balancing analytics on getting views on certain stories, which as journalists, you want people to read your hard work, right? You want to get response from that, but at the same time, staying true to what you feel like you want to put out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people kind of struggle with this because obviously we all want our stuff to get views. Like, that's the crux of, this industry. You want eyes on your work, but so it's crazy because some stuff that you might work your ass off on a story and doesn't get that many views, and something that you think isn't even very good ends up blowing up. So it's like, I think you have to constantly just look for stories that people want to tell. So, like, obviously, like, something that we kind of, dealt with last year, like, you can put out a game recap, right? And where you're just, all right, so-and-so won, this person had X amount of points, and this coach said, oh yeah, we're working to get better every day so we can be the best we can be by March. Like, it's like a generic game to it. Like, all right, like, or you can go write a feature story about a player that might, have a mom that has cancer and how he's, trying to use his NIL money to fund her cancer research or something like that, or a player that might be, like, I did a story earlier this year on a football player at Pitt who's using his NIL money to fund it's like a bakery back in his hometown that provides free meals to people that are, like, homeless or people that can't afford them, stuff like that. So, like, doing a story that people would actually want to read, because we think everybody wants to read it, but stuff that actually, might, impact how somebody feels. You want to always try to, like, get something that people that's going to strike their emotions, whether it's, something that might be, funny or something that might be, sad at times, but, making sure that whatever you're telling is something that is relevant and is timely, as opposed to something that just might be something that you can go read in a box score or something that you can go read, if you watch the game or, something like that. So I think, obviously there are a bunch of stories out here that need to be told. So, just doing your due diligence and trying to find those stories that need to be told and trying to do the best to get those out. But like I said, there's some stories where you might work your ass off and people might not get the numbers that you want. And then there might be stories that you think, all right, this is all right, I kind of threw this together on a whim, and it might do numbers. So you can't really control that as much, but you have to try to stay true to what you do as a journalist. And hopefully, if you keep, laying brick by brick, eventually you'll get the views and stuff that you want to get out of it.
Right. So as you guys know, a lot of our listeners are on this side of the world in Asia, and a lot of them would like to get the opportunity to play in the NCAA down the line. Can you talk about some of the changes that have been made in the NCAA, especially the transfer portal? What is that, and how does that affect college sports?
Yeah, so I mean, I was saying the portal now is different than it was a few years ago, just because of the fact that before there was no portal. Like, you just had to walk into your office and ask for your release. Like, okay, can I be released from my scholarship? And then your coach would basically say, like, yes or no. And then if they say no, then it's a battle. But normally they'll give you your release. But there's a process that you have to literally walk into the office and say, like, oh, can I ask for my release from my scholarship form? Now you don't gotta do that. You could literally, I could be, if I was a student at Quinnipiac right now, I can go talk to my compliance director and say, yo, I want to put my name in the portal. I don't got to talk to the coach. I don't got to talk to anybody. I can literally go online and put my information in the portal, and my name will be in the transfer portal, which is basically like a database of all the players who are available. And so that allows coaches to see who's available. So now the thing, once that became a thing, like you had an influx of people that were, entering this transfer portal after the season. And the biggest thing was this year there was the NCAA passed a rule that said that you could have immediate eligibility for first-time transfers. So normally if you transfer and you weren't a grad transfer, so if you weren't graduating college and transferring, you had to sit out. So if you were a freshman, sophomore, junior, and you transferred schools, you had to sit out a year. What the NCAA did this year is they allowed a one-time transfer waiver. So basically, if you transfer for the first time, if you transfer a second time, you have to sit out, unless you're, again, a grad transfer. But they allow people to be able to get basically a free pass where if you leave, then you don't have to sit out. So that created a whole new influx of people that are now entering the portal. Like, you know what? Hey, I think the grass is green somewhere else. I'm going to put my name in the portal and go somewhere else. And once that happened, man, it became pandemonium. So now, in a normal recruiting cycle, you would have coaches that would, let's say I have 3 seniors graduating. Maybe you'll say, all right, I'm going to take 2 high school seniors in November. And then if I get a transfer in the spring, I'll close my roster out with that. Now coaches are like, look, I might have 3 seniors, but then I might have 3 guys that are transferring. So I might have 6 scholarships. So maybe I'll take, a high school guy or 2 in the fall, but I'm really going to leave 4 or 5 spots open for the spring for whoever's in this portal, whoever I can get in the spring. So what that's kind of done is it's taking their emphasis off of high school players, because they're like, yo, why would I take a high school kid when I can go get somebody that might have averaged 10, 11 points a game last year? Or why am I going to go recruit a guy from China when I can get a guy that averaged 13 points a game last year playing Division I basketball?
Let me ask you this. Do you think that it makes a difference, both of you guys actually, do you think it makes a difference for a coaching decision if I have 2 years of eligibility or 3 years of eligibility? Does that make a huge difference in terms of who they're going to pick for transfers?
No, because nowadays I think the difference is like coaches are evaluating rosters from year to year. It's like, all right, we speak to coaches all the time and say before you were trying to build like a program and build, over a 4-year period, but now it's almost like the NBA where you're trying to re-recruit your players every year and trying to reset your roster every season. So obviously, if you want a kid that can be there for as long as possible, but if I can get a kid on a 1-year rental that might save my job this year, I'm gonna take him. I don't care if he's a sophomore, junior, senior. If he can help me next year to keep my job another year and potentially get an extension, I'm gonna take him this year.
For sure. Well, guys, I hate to cut this short, but you guys have been amazing, and I want to make sure that you get to your next engagement on time. Drew, can you tell us about a little bit of what you guys got going on right now, and where can people find out more about the amazing work that you're doing?
Yeah, man, guys can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at All Facts Media. Like I mentioned, we also have a TikTok, All Facts Media as well. YouTube channel, you subscribe to us on YouTube, All Facts Media. All of our written work, as well as on our website, allfactsmediainc.com. So guys can tap into that, man. We're doing a lot of stuff, man. We have our weekly podcast, The Auto Bid. You can subscribe to that wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google. So got a lot of stuff going on. Doing some day in the life. I'm doing some day in the life content over here in Portugal. So if you want to see what it's like to kind of, see an overseas professional basketball player in Europe, make sure you guys follow us on that as well. So it's definitely got a lot going on. So hope you guys can definitely tune in and, see what we got coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Definitely, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Just hold the line, and everybody, we'll see you next week.